All right. Hey there, everyone. My name is Dr. Light, and I'm a research educator for the FRI microbial biofilm stream. I'm just going to give it another 30 seconds or a minute here, make sure everyone's filtered in through the waiting room. I'll give a little intro and then turn it over for you guys to hear about student portfolios. All right, I don't see any stragglers, so we'll go ahead and get going, make sure we have as much time as possible, especially for Q&A at the end. So this is our second year running this series, the goal being to help you guys have specific tips and tricks to really highlight your FRI experiences on your personal portfolio materials, including resumes and CVs and things like LinkedIn as well, where you're trying to network and make connections and promote yourself. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our friend Jordan Smith from the Fleischman Center, who's been a career consultant there for 4 years and a really strong friend and ally of the FRI program in using their resources to help you guys. So we'll say thank you to Jordan, and I hope you all enjoy.
Yes, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I am excited to be here. I'm pretty hopeful throughout this presentation that you are going to, feel empowered by the experiences that you've already done in FRI and will continue to do, and really help you draw the connection to how these experiences are really going to help you with your candidacy for many different future positions. And so I'm going to share my screen, get the PowerPoint up, and break down kind of the various areas we're going to touch on today. Get that set up. Great. So when you look at the objectives, I'm going to break these down and kind of showcase which ones we're going to spend the most time with and so on. So starting, we are going to do just a brief overview of what the difference between a resume and a CV is. Most likely you guys are all going to have both documents. There is a difference on kind of the format and the intentionality of it. So we'll break all those aspects down. The biggest part we're going to really focus on today is this second bullet: how to identify and articulate skills and contributions from FRI experiences in order to formulate bullet points that are specific and evidence-based. That is going to be really impactful for your candidacy. There is a formula that we use that really help you market yourself to your best of your ability. So we're going to spend some time on that and have some examples so you really can kind of understand how that process works. And then we will get into cover letters. We're going to talk about how you really can use those FRI experiences to articulate interests and also qualifications for the employer needs. We are going to get into that LinkedIn and talk about how we can enhance your profile visibility and really be an extension of your resume and an enhancement of your resume by utilizing certain features on LinkedIn. And lastly, we are going to look at a resource. There's a one-page resource we have that really helps you identify many future research opportunities, okay? So there's a lot packed into this hour. And like I said, we're going to save time at the end for questions. So feel free to write them down if they come up throughout the presentation. And without further ado, we're going to jump right in. So this table is really going to help us break down how resumes and CVs are different in a variety of different areas. So we'll start with purpose. When a purpose for a resume is that outlines your personal, educational, and world-related experiences in relation to a position. So you really are going to use that job description, internship description, research description to guide which experiences you're going to articulate on that document. On the opposite end, a CV is a comprehensive summary of your educational and professional experiences, including publication, presentations, professional activities, honors, and additional information. It is much fuller. It is like all the experiences that you have done. And so that really is going to separate a lot of things. That's going to get into length in just a little bit. Now, the position types where you're going to see them request often more resumes, they're going to be business, nonprofit, technical fields, other non-academic positions, while CV is mostly utilized for like faculty, research, clinical, scientific positions, graduate school applications, or when requested. You could see both being requested in certain applications, and you can make that decision which you feel would be the best at articulating your candidacy for those roles specifically. But when it gets into kind of like, I think one of the main differences with these two documents is going to be the length. Resumes are typically one page, sometimes two if there's a lot of relevant experience, versus a CV can be very lengthy. I would say 2 pages is usually kind of the minimum, and I've worked on CVs that are at least 10 pages long because as you go down the focus, it's a comprehensive biographical statement. It's really showcasing all of your professional academic accomplishments versus again, the focus for a resume is more so you're kind of picking and choosing for the specific position that you're applying to. Now, for you all, because you see up in position type, research, scientific positions, if that's going to end up being a part of your career interest further into your college journey and so on, you're most likely going to use the CV. And so this is where we kind of write undergrad CV, this little blurb at the end, because you may not have all the experiences to be, for instance, like a 10-page CV. That's not expected, but you are going to have probably, research experience, publications, presentations, and so on. And so a 1 or 2 page resume may not be enough to really articulate all those important experiences in relation to whatever role you're applying to. So definitely, I think you're going to have both copies, and this kind of gives you an overview. And I will also point out the resume and the CV are different in the United States. Internationally, a CV and a resume, depending on where you're looking to apply to, could mean the same thing. So I always say for any international opportunities, maybe touch base with a career consultant just to kind of ensure that you're creating the best document for that specific area. Okay. Now, I'm briefly going to touch base on formatting. I actually have a resume template, and it would work for a CV too, that I'm going to show you in just a little bit. So this will be emailed to you. So it's going to have a lot of the format already set, but I kind of want to explain what you're going to see on that template to kind of articulate like why it's set up that way and what's the benefit. So when you're creating a resume or CV, really the lowest you want to go for your margins is 0.5. If you go really any lower, it really can start to mess with like printing and so on. I would say if you're limited for room, switching your margins to 0.5 is usually the best way to open up a lot of space so you can articulate more experiences if you're like pressed for space, for instance, like in a resume. And if you don't have enough experiences, you wouldn't need to do that. It might stay with the 1-inch margin so it looks more fuller. Be consistent with the spacing, make the information easy to find. So you will see there are some variety of ways that some section heads might be listed on our resume or a CV in some different styles. Generally, I think a lot of them follow similar guidelines, but you just want to make sure like whatever style you're choosing, it is consistent. That will have the most professional flow, seeing like it start to finish. It doesn't look like maybe something wasn't looked at and not proofread and kind of sticks out. You want to use a plain face typeface and a font size between 10 and 12. That's important because I know a lot of, I've worked with some students with documents that they're trying to go lower than 10 just to fit a lot of content in. And so really you don't want it to be difficult for a search committee, employer, hiring manager to read. And 12 is like the highest you want to go. You don't want to take up too much space. And chronological order. So within each of your sections, you might have a section head for research, for leadership, for volunteer, for class projects, and so on. Within that section head, you want the experiences to be in chronological order. So most present first, and you'll see that as you're going down. So that's within the categories themselves. It's not actually the way the categories have to be listed on the resume, okay? So you're also gonna see right here is like a screenshot of the template, and right here's our career guide. I'm gonna show you both resources right now. So this is going to be in a Word document sent to you. Right now, it's just set up on Google Doc just for like the showcasing. I want to point out like this is a encouraged style. You can kind of use it as you wish, but I tried to put in some spaces where you would easily fill in your own content. I put things in red so that like these are probably common areas that you're going to fill in. It's really, I think, connects a lot to your FRI experiences, but you're going to want to edit those. You may not be this far along that you have all these experiences and so on. So I just want you to know you're going to edit those for your personal experiences. But it's set up in a great format. Research, if you're going into other research opportunities, you want that section head to be first as well as skills. And customize it for however you are. So you might only have one work experience. So then get rid of the second one and kind of fill it in with whatever else. And you got awards and honors. Maybe you don't have volunteer experience, but you have leadership experience. So I wanted you to have an idea of like, this is, I think, a really great way to fit a lot of content on a document in a very easy way to navigate the information. It's one of the main templates that we utilize. And then I talked about our career guide. This is going to be given into you in an email as well. And this does cover a number of different areas: resumes, cover letters, networking, all and so on. But there is several sections on resumes and CVs. And when we get into the bullet formula, action verbs are going to be a big part of that. And so I do like to point out that this section has a huge list. So you're not just expected to kind of try to brainstorm that on your own. And you're going to see different resumes listed throughout, and CVs are at the end of the booklet. So that, again, you can kind of get some examples already of like how some documents are already written. It might help help with some brainstorming and how you might want to approach some of your experiences and so on. But I want you to just know, because this, I think, is a really great resource that's going to cover a number of different areas in career development, but specifically help you with a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk on for resumes and cover letters and even LinkedIn today. Okay. So let me get back. Now we're going to focus into this bullet point formula. And again, this is going to be really helpful. My examples I'm going to use in this are all FRI because I want that to be the focal point. But I do want you to know this bullet point formula is really for any of your experiences on your resume or CV, okay? It really, what this does is I encourage you to really spend time with your bullet point, your resume bullets, because if you can truly take the time to reflect on what skills you developed and what your impact was, this is not only going to help you when the committee is actually reviewing your documents and seeing your candidacy and being like, oh, look at all that they've done. Like it's a clear picture painted of like the impacts that you made in this role that would connect to the qualifications that they're asking for in the description. But not only is it going to help you hopefully make it to the interview, but then you're going to be way more ready for the interview because you've done a deeper dive. You've really taken the time to understand how this program or any other experience has really developed your skills and made you qualified for this role. So it's a little tedious, but I think this is always worth doing up front. And then it's maintenance work really after you get this set. This formula, I think, is one of the best ways to take kind of like a daunting task, I think, of trying to like make the bullet point, perfect or really sounding professional at first, and breaking it down into chunks so that you can merge those and really, I think, in a much easier way, put together a solid professional bullet point that articulates what you've done. So the first two, I think, are pretty common when I see resumes. I think these are the more common that people have down, but there are a couple things I want to point out. So when you're first trying to write your bullets, what did you do? You might use like, sometimes there's actual descriptions already to the job that you applied to or the research opportunity or so on. And you can look at that kind of job description to help you with the brainstorming. What they ask for in that position is most likely what you've been doing in this role. That's a good place to start for some brainstorming. But then when it comes to actually, you got that list made, you want to start each bullet point with an action verb. These are really going to be important for something called applicant tracking software. So a lot of companies use this software. So when you're submitting your resume, that's the first thing that's actually scanning it and looking at it oftentimes. And the action verbs, how it's set up is, those are going to, you want those to match the keywords and skill sets that they've asked for in descriptions. And the more it matches it, the higher you're going to rank in that listing of applicant pools. And so it talks about your skills. It's like skill, action, verbs, like what you specifically did. And you want to tailor those to the descriptions that you've actually done. So you see words like manage, lead, design, research, right at the start of your bullet point formula. You do want to avoid words like help, assist, aid, responsible for. And this is not something that I knew when I was first working on my resume. I remember I feel like this example is a good one. They're a little too general and they can also cause misassumptions to happen. So for instance, I wrote one point that I assisted with some large scale career related events at my previous university. And I did assist with those, but assist could mean a number of things. Like, did I work on the strategic vision? Did I help with employer relations to get those employers on campus? Did I do the marketing initiatives with it? No, I literally just greeted people that came into the event and gave them all the resources and then checked them in. So, and that's still very valuable, but there's such a range that could be assumed of what I was actually doing. So you don't want that to be that, you don't want like misassumptions to happen. And then sometimes you're not giving yourself enough credit. So it could be the opposite end. It could be like, you really did some amazing things, but someone might assume because you just said assist that it's just very general and you really did a lot more than actually was assumed in that bullet point, okay? And like noted in here, page 8 is going to have a bunch of action verbs. So you can kind of use that to help you with your brainstorming. The last two parts are the parts that I think are most missed when it comes to bullet writing: the how, why, and quantify. And quantify is like if needed. So let me explain this. So the how is pretty simple. Like if you did a certain technique or you in research, like how did you do it? Like what were some of the techniques that helped you in that process? What were some of the equipment that you may have utilized? It's giving yourself more credit. So you're not just saying that you did generally XYZ, it might actually show that you have training in this technique and this equipment and that. So you're giving yourself more full credit. This also really works for like, how did you do it? Like, did you work in a team? Teamwork's a huge skill set employers want to see. And so that's an easy miss if you're not listing that, like something like in collaboration with 6 other students. So you give yourself that extra credit. And it's such a simple little addition that would give you a whole nother skill set that would not only impress the recruiter and the search committee, but also help with applicant tracking software. The why, so I always break it down like, what was the result or what was the purpose? Because not everything has a clear result, but sometimes there's a purpose that you can explain. But for instance, you're going to see in some of the examples today, a lot of your results of all the work that you've done for certain stacks of FRI led up to like a manuscript, a research paper, a presentation to for a campus-wide research day event. Like those are really, that's public speaking, that's strong written communication skills. There's so much more depth that you're gaining by including those specifics, that impact, okay? But I will say for some of your other experiences, like my first job was a dishwasher at Ponderosa. I'm not gonna say my result was like washing 300 dishes in one night, like that doesn't make sense, right? But my purpose was something like worked in an assembly line to ensure that the restaurant ran efficiently during fast-paced times. That way I can still gain credit for my ability to work under pressure and my ability to work into a team, okay? So all this, again, is really helping you paint a very clear picture to the employer of what you did, and you're giving yourself your fullest credit. The last part with quantifying, I said, like, if possible, if it's necessary. So like an easy one that you'll see in for here is like, when you're finishing FRI and you've achieved over 150 plus lab hours and you're in your sophomore year, that's so impressive. That's such a huge selling point. That's so much experience. And you don't want to assume whoever's reading your document knows what this program is or any of your other experiences necessarily. And so that's a huge amount of hours that you've gained, and that's a huge selling point to the employer. And you could maybe do that in an interview if you get to that point, but what if you're not getting to that point because they're assuming that this experience wasn't as competitive or as strongly related to the role as it actually is, okay? So you don't want to lose credit in that area. Other areas of quantifying would be like, if you fundraise, for instance, and you raise a lot of money, that could be a great area. If you did some marketing initiatives and it helped like increase like an attendance at a crowd by like 50% from last year's kind of attendance, that kind of stuff holds a lot of weight, okay? So I have an example here. I like this example a lot because it is pointing out like a good bullet point versus a better couple bullet points for the same kind of idea of the experience. And so you'll kind of see the bullet point formula put into practice and how much this is, giving you more credit. So a good bullet point that I might run across for instance, in FRI, for the FRI program might be performed research in a 3-semester research program and presented at a poster event. It does let the reader know that you've done research for a year and a half, and you did have a public speaking component to it. But there's so much more that you could give, especially if it's like a position that's like a research that's really related to the stuff that you've already done in FRI. And so the better is broken up into 2 separate bullets, because when you're really breaking it down with the formula, there's so much more impact that you can list. And so something like that good bullet could sound something like this. Worked on a 6-person team to investigate the relationship between PQS, outer membrane vesicles, and CDI, GMP, and biofilms of Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and completed over 150 plus hours of lab work. Also, compiled information by producing a complete research proposal and manuscript, and by creating and presenting research posters with original schematics at 2 FRI poster sessions. Okay, you look to the right, there's just so much more skill articulation by elaborating and getting more specific on the experiences that you've done in this program. Now, I do like to point out here, because I think this is like a great example of like the extent you want to go potentially with writing some bullet points of as far as length. You don't want to go more than 2 rows when it comes to the bullet writing, because then it can get a little too tedious and a little bit, really, I think if it goes past 2 rows, there's some questions of whether you should just make it into another bullet point, like split them into 2. But I see more, so that's not usually what I see. I usually see more that there's like a really like, even a shorter sentence in the good bullet, I'll see something so much more short, and it's just not giving yourself nearly enough credit. And you're painting such a general picture to an employer. This is very specific, and it gives such a stronger idea of how experienced you are from doing this past experience, okay? So kind of to give some more examples, just to help you with the process, you can do this for yourself. This might be a great place where you're brainstorming. This PowerPoint will be sent to you, so you'll have all this to kind of digest even further. But for your research method seminar, like I told you in the beginning, like you might want to start looking to see if there's already something listed that would tell you about the different things you'll achieve within these, like these experiences. And so you can see the research method seminar topics include a number of different things. So just kind of using that as a template a little bit, like you can see I wrote something like collaborating on a 5-person team throughout the semester, exploring how blank that resulted in presenting findings at campus-wide research poster presentation, and analyze data using blank and organize fundings using blank to create research-focused poster display. Highlighted that like there's a lot of skill set here. You got collaborated for teamwork, you got presenting for public speaking, you got analyze data for analytical thinking, you got organize findings for organization, and you got create for designing. That's a lot of skill set. And this will really come in handy too when you're looking at certain positions. That's basically the recipe. Like it shows all the ingredients of what they want this candidate to have. And you don't have to have all of that. You want to have a lot of those experiences if possible, but you don't have to have all of them. I think unless there's some really specific guidelines that says you need this before you can apply. And if you don't have those, obviously, then that's not it. But a lot of the time you'll have a good amount of those, and that's going to make you a strong candidate. And so don't get kind of discouraged if you see that you're not a perfect 100%. Very few people are in that case, but you're going to see the ingredients, and then based on the skill set they're asking for, these are the kind of things that are going to help say to the employer, like, hey, like I got these experiences. This is what this program was. It's, you know, I feel very strong about my candidacy for this role. So then going into kind of the research stream lab courses, so I know everyone's in either different boats of like first semester or potentially in third semester and so on. And so the first thing I'm listing is I do like, you can see at the bottom, like listing the skills and techniques you learned in its own section. I put that in the resume/CV template that I showed you earlier. I like this because there's only going to be so much. You don't want to necessarily list those in the bullet point format, bullet points of the experiences, because that's going to be very list-like. It's, I think, visually so much easier for a recruiter to just see it listed like this. And it's a quick, like when this is first, like it's a quick win when they're like, they already listed that they wanted you to have some of these and they instantly see it in this format. It's quick to digest, especially if they have a lot of applicants. Like this is a great way to visually connect immediately that you're qualified. You might take some of these, like how I go about bullet writing a lot of the time for the different experiences you're going to have bullets for. That first bullet point, it's nice to make it general of like what this whole experience was like. What was the big impact? What were you doing? Because that makes it kind of like, it's like the trailer. It's like explaining like, this is the experience I've done. This is the big impact I've done. Then the bullets under it can be some really significant achievements that you've done within that experience. That's like one style that I think really works well. And so you can see that for resume bullet writing course 1 and resume bullet write course 2. The first bullets kind of have that overview. And then the second bullets have a little bit more of some of the specific accomplishments that came about because of that experience. Okay. And so some of it might be, maybe there were some certain techniques. This is where the job description or the research description or internship description is really going to help guide you with some of the stuff, because you've probably done a number of things. But when you're limited for space, you are going to look at the description to be kind of your guideline of like, how much should I include? Like what makes the cut if you are limited for room based on what they're asking for. And that's one way to really guide yourself and say like, yeah, there you go. That's what, a lot of the stuff, if you cut to, honestly, it could go on your CV or it's something that you could put on your LinkedIn. So there's really not like total cutting, I think, when you have these other resources and you're using them for your career development. Now, when you see the title, Organizing a 3-Semester Program on a Resume or a CV, if you have the room, this is one approach. You'll see kind of the italicized version to kind of break down that there's different subsections within this experience. And you could have a couple bullet points, couple achievements from each of those areas. If you are limited a little bit from a room, you'll see something I think like more like this, where you might just, again, use the description to guide you to say who makes the cut, who's the best to have on here for me to keep this on my resume and have some other experiences included as well. Okay, so that can be kind of up in the air. And this is where also, like, if you have questions about some of the specific details of stuff like this, you always come in for a walk-in or an appointment. We help make that call if needed. Okay. So like I said, you are going to get a resume CV template to help guide you with this process. You're going to get this PowerPoint, so it's going to help you already start to see how you can put some of this bullet point into practice with your FRI experiences. Again, my big overarching thing is like, you guys got to give yourself the fullest credit. Don't assume they know what it is. You really want to sit down and reflect on the achievements, the impact that you've made throughout this program, and have that on your resume. And then that's, again, going to empower you in the interview itself. So it really is going to have multiple benefits if you really spend the time to just do this up front. Now we are going to switch into cover letters, and it's going to get into LinkedIn and the resource guide. Okay. So if you have any questions with the resumes and CVs, just write those down. I'm going to save time at the end so that make sure that we can touch base on those. Okay. So then when it comes to cover letter, first off, I do want to point out, because someone brought this up to me the other day, earlier in this week. Because there is, I think, a myth that you may have heard about cover letters that, like, I think people will say, like, they're not looked at or they're not needed. And the research that we do and whatnot, that is not the case. And being on search committees and stuff, I've seen from my own viewpoint, but also a number of other search committee members, how important a cover letter is. And so let me break this down. Of like, there is a difference between, I think one of the researchers was saying that like, great cover letters are read, bad cover letters. You can see there's kind of a quick visual that would tell you that a cover letter is really not, there was no work put into it. So like when you see a mini paragraph and that's it, those are often mass produced when people are just trying to get a number of positions out, and those don't have nearly as much value as when you actually break this down. So let me guide you on how FRI really could be utilized in a cover letter that is, I think, going to enhance your candidacy a lot. So when it comes to a cover letter, one of the best things it can do is demonstrate its interest in a position. So if you think about your resume or CV as like demonstrating qualification, your cover letter is going to demonstrate interest. And if you think they want to know your interest when they're interviewing you, a lot of the time it is like, why are you interested in this position? What do you know about our company or the work that we do here? That's such an important part of the application process. And so they give you a chance to do that during a cover letter. So with FRI, I think what's something that could work really well for you, and it could be in different levels depending on where you're at. If you are doing research right now that you see yourself specifically doing in other future research roles, you could do two things. I mean, FRI 1 confirmed to you that like research is something you really want to do. You have experiential experience doing this work. So that is a huge win already. But then you've done the work specifically for the topic that you want to invest in. And so you could have a whole paragraph dedicated to how this program has helped you really identify this is the work you want to be doing. You've seen the impact. You understand it more fully after doing a lot of research. This is what you want to do. And this position that you have open would be an amazing opportunity because of X, Y, Z. If you're more like that, you might not do the same kind of research that you've done in this program. Still, you have a 3-semester research program that has helped you identify that you want to do research. And it gets into the second part of like really helping you connect the skills and employer needs based on a research position. But you could still, if it's not the exact research, you still really can articulate that you want to do research. You want to make this kind of impact for your profession, and you're excited about this opportunity because it's really going to support you in that process. Okay. So I think that's a huge win there with the interest piece of a cover letter that really holds a lot of weight. Then when you get into drawing connection between your skills and the employer needs, I again took a couple examples just from what the program outlines. Like there's so much that you can do. There's so much it's prepared you for. And a cover letter is just one page. And so it is something that you'll, again, use description for to decide what makes the most sense here. How can you really summarize the most impactful experiences based on what the description is asking for, and so on. Okay. There's different strategies that I do with that, because there's different times where you could do like a general sentence that shows like a multitude of different skills that you've developed, but then you hone in on a couple that are really related to the position. The last part I want to include is why them. So this is not, honestly, like when someone's applying for something, ideally it would be nice that they're, one, interested in the position, but two, the company or the employer itself, like the values and the mission of what they're doing. A lot of the time, though, when you're looking for why you're interested in this role, isn't necessarily them at first. It's like you just have potentially the opening, and it's on the kind of content I want to work on and it'll really support my career. And that's a lot of truth for a lot of everyone. But there is something that you can still do to go deeper and still try to connect, like, why are you excited about this organization and about potentially doing a research opportunity there, an internship opportunity, and so on. And so the strategy that I often encourage to do to just see if it will work for you is look at that company or organization's mission statement and their values, and potentially research them on LinkedIn to just see if they won any awards. It's really easy to fit this in and make that connection. So like if let's say you're making a conclusion paragraph for your cover letter, and you're saying, in conclusion, I'm really excited about the possibility of utilizing my past experiences to contribute to your organization. I'm also excited to work potentially for a company who value innovation, excellence, and collaboration. That second sentence, let's say that's pulled right from their values and their mission statement, shows that you've done more research on that company, and that can make you a really big standout. And it's good for you to know too, like it gives you a little bit more sense of what it might be like in that environment if you get that position. And that can be really important stuff to know, because let's say you got a couple offers. These are the things that you would do to potentially decide, like, okay, if they all are going to help me with my career and they're all in the similar field, maybe some of the ways you make that decision is like, you look at like what this organization's culture is like, and maybe what would be your most thriving environment, and kind of go from that. So it doesn't take too much work, I think, to include that in. It doesn't take up too much room. So I like to throw that out there. Okay. So let's see. When it comes to LinkedIn, I have this here to show kind of the main areas we're going to talk about, but I'm actually just going to show you on LinkedIn what this looks like. Let's see here. One thing I'll point out with LinkedIn, I think it's an amazing resource. I think there's, it's not always easy to understand maybe its value up front if you're new to this platform. So again, their career guide has information on that. You could always meet with a career consultant. There's presentations and things of that sort. But I will tell you, as a testimony of just my own experience and just working with a number of students on LinkedIn, I think there's a lot of value that can come from this. One of the main things that I think that you could use for FRI right away on your LinkedIn is actually the LinkedIn summary section. So this can change a number of times depending on what you're utilizing your LinkedIn for. But probably for most of you where you're at right now, it's going to be, it's a branding tool. It's your personal brand, your professional brand. And so you might leverage your FRI experience or articulating that you're a future researcher, like this is the kind of work that you want to be doing. You'll do other things in a summary. It's basically, the LinkedIn summary is kind of like your cover letter of your personal brand in some ways. So there could be some other components, but I think this could really help you create a compelling, interesting like hook for the recruiters. And just for you to have that reflection, you create a summary that's going to really help you when you're being interviewed and they ask you about, tell me about yourself and things like that. This could be a great place for you kind of to hone who you are, who's that like 30-second commercial or elevator pitch, whatever you're familiar with hearing. This is a good section for you to have that on there. Now, when it comes to enhance, like I said, your LinkedIn can enhance your resume, and it also can be an extension of your resume. And so one area that like I like to point out is the fact that you can include media on here. So you might list FRIs under experiences and have the same bullet points. If you have your resume or CV done, it's not hard to make your LinkedIn profile. It's a lot of copying and pasting at first. And then there'll be some other sections that are unique to your LinkedIn that you would have to actually do. But for instance, if you put on here your LinkedIn, or you just copy and paste your FRI experience over from your resume or CV, have those bullet points, you could attach media if you have that. So if there's like research papers or your poster presentation or things like that, there is this opportunity for, it's called the enhancement feature, where you really get to showcase your work. And this can work could be helpful when it comes to if you're submitting your CV and resume, and at the top of your resume, you have like your LinkedIn URL. It could prompt those on the committee to look out your LinkedIn, and your LinkedIn would have portfolio related material. If you had like your research papers on here, or if you had like your poster design, you'd get an opportunity to see some of the work you've actually done that your resume or CV would convey in a bullet point, but not necessarily have a visual effect of that. So there's that potential. You don't have to put it in the actual section, though. This is the enhancement. You don't have to put it exactly related to the position itself. You can do add section, and you can add it to the accomplishment section. You might like accomplishment, like if you might be published at some point. So that's something to really know. There's projects right here. That's where you can attach PDFs and things of that nature. You can add collaborators. If you worked on the project together and you have other researchers, student researchers with you on the project, you can add them on there. The thing that's with that LinkedIn, it's a networking resource, but it is also a job and internship resource. And so recruiters are often using this to find candidates for various roles. And so you can actually, at the top, it has a button right here, open to. So you would list that you're looking for a new job. It lets you filter by internships and so on as you go down here. So like, you don't have to worry about it's not just for jobs. You write your research opportunities and stuff like that. And you can flag recruiters, say like you're open to opportunities, research opportunities and internships. And the more keywords you have, it kind of goes along with that. It's applicant tracking software. It's like the search engine optimization. The more keywords you have related to your field, the higher you're going to rank for recruiters looking for someone to fill this role. Okay, so it's worth investing in. I also look at it as a great placeholder. It's a great way for you to have a lot of material on here that, again, your resume might be limited to. So I think that's another really great perk with utilizing FRI on here. The last thing I would suggest, if you're, depending on where you're at with your comfort level with how you want to use your LinkedIn for networking, but it is, when you're posting to your home feed on LinkedIn and you have connections and whatnot, the idea is that you might post some of your professional achievements. And this would not only inform your network, but potentially others that would be a great asset to add to your network. So you might see other people in your field who see that you presented on whatever your research topic was and you put the picture up or something of that nature. And it might get to see your content and reach out to you for potential other opportunities. There is that possibility with this as well. And so just throw that out there. I put that in the slide also. Okay. All right. And so this is the last thing I'm going to go over. And then we will switch into Q&A. So again, write any of those down if there's anything that's coming up. But finding really research-related opportunities. And so this was a collaborative through a collaborative kind of project with FRI, the Undergrad Research Center and Inflation Center, to compose a document that would really have a lot of the materials that would help you and resources to help you find research-related opportunities. So let me just, this one, right? Perfect. So you're going to get emailed this out, but I'll give you an overview right now. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. The first part is just going to talk about how if you do want to make appointments, you can do that through the Undergrad Research Center and through Higher Bing for the Fleischman Center to go over really your resumes. For the Fleischman Center, it's really any aspect of your career development. You'll see all those appointment topics on there. I think you'll see, again, on the URC's website when that takes you there, what topics they're going to cover with you. And then if you scroll down, you'll see the research-specific resources. And so pathways to science, there's a lot of REU opportunities on here with these first two. You'll see some of the on-campus research opportunities with the next couple. All of these links will take you right there. It gives you a brief overview of the descriptions. I do really want to point out that there's a FRI Summer Opportunity List that's specifically for FRI students. So you click on this and you'll see a bunch of resources and summer opportunities that align with FRI well. So definitely take advantage of that. There are some general job and internship resources here, Higher Bing, Career Shift, LinkedIn. These are great ways to find opportunities. And then I just put some additional resources as well. The career guide is on here. I've already showed you that today. Mentor Match is an amazing networking platform. You can look up whatever career you want to do. You can look up to see if there's an alum who's doing that career. And if they're on the platform, they want to be a mentor for current students. So it's not just general networking, it's mentorship. So there's so much value. They are looking to help you. That was really articulated when if they were interested in signing up, that would be a huge part. So I can't stress enough to explore that resource. And we will talk about Big Interview more at Ace Your Interviews in a couple of weeks. I adore that tool. I think it's an excellent resource for practicing your interviewing, which is a huge another part of the candidacy. We'll get into how to kind of talk about that for marketing your FRI experiences in that role in a couple of weeks, but put that link there as well, and you'll have that resource. Okay. So again, all of these are going to be emailed out to you. And I'll just wrap up with this and then, like I said, open it up for Q&A. But this is for our current semester. If you want to come in for walk-ins at the Fleischman Center, they are Monday through Friday, 12 to 3:40. And it's a variety of, again, just like appointments, there's a number of different areas and topics, anything aspect related to your career development we can support you on. But the walk-ins are 20-minute sessions. And it's kind of first come, first serve versus appointments you would schedule on Higher Bing. You'd meet with a career consultant like myself, and it would be 30 minutes long. Okay. And I will say that appointments could be virtual or in person. You would have a selection option when you're going through that process of making your appointment. But overall, before I open up the Q&A, I just hope you get a sense of how you should be really amazed at being in this program and what you're doing. And I hope you feel empowered at how these experiences that you've done and will do are going to really help your candidacy for many different future roles. If you stay in research, again, it's a really strong connection. If you venture out a little bit, there's still a lot of value. There's lots of value. I will stress that if you do like even change careers completely, there's still going to be so much transferable skills that come from FRI. We just talk about how does that relate if you decide you want to go into something with art or something, like what does that look like? What's the best wording of your bullet points and so on? But overall, it's a really great experience that's going to help your candidacy and your career goals. And thank you guys for having me, for being able to talk about this material. Okay. And like I said, I'm going to open it up to Q&A, but just given that conclusion before it wraps up fully, that thanks for having me.
All right, thank you, Jordan. So I think the easiest way we can do this is if you want to put your questions into the chat, we can sort of feed them through that way. As Jordan said, I will be sure to share all these resources, the slides, the recording, all the extra forms and everything with you on our Brightspace pages. The other thing that you can find on our Brightspace page is the reflection form, for which you can receive extra credit for attending this session. So I put the link to that in the chat. But again, everything you need is on our Life After FRI content page on our Brightspace course. So do we have any questions?
It looks like we got our first question. It's a great question. So for an unpaid research-based internship, would that go under work experience or research experience on a resume? And so for that, I would put it under research experience. I just with your, when you list your job, your kind of your title of the position, you might put like research intern or something like that to articulate it was just kind of an internship. Okay. All right, let's see this next one. If you are looking for opportunities that might strongly prefer, not require, say upperclassmen, but you aren't, how would you address this when reaching out, if you would indeed address it at all? So if it's strongly preferred, it's not required. So I think like, and honestly, sometimes it might be strongly preferred because they might think you have a number of, you might have research opportunities by the time you're upperclassmen, but y'all have a unique situation where you have so much research done, 3 semesters worth of so much content. So I think you might be impressed, like if you were to, I would apply and I might, you know, articulate just everything that you've done in FRI. And I think that would be, I think they're going to look through that. And because if it's strongly preferred, they're going to look at most likely all the applicants and things like that. It's not a requirement. So.
And I would add to Jordan's there, a lot of the REU programs that he talked about would fit into this category. Many of them are looking for upperclassmen, but it's not required. So that's what you really want to go to the Fleischman Center and have him help you highlight those skills up front that make you look like an upperclassman researcher, even though your transcript is going to say otherwise, right? It's really those qualities, not the actual label, that's important, but you have to do a good job for yourself highlighting it.
Absolutely. Great question. And that goes with, again, just anything, if you see stuff on there that you don't have just yet, if it's not under requirements, like a lot of descriptions are written for a perfect candidate, and that's just not realistic for a lot of situations. And so you want to have it's a strong kind of connection to like a lot of the stuff that they're saying, but it's not, I think a lot of, and myself included, was psyched out by a lot of roles that I didn't apply to because I was so intimidated by what they were asking for. But there's a number of situations that like people who take that chance, like get the role. I just talked to someone the other day that was saying that, and I was like, yeah. So we can always talk it out if you know, to help with the nerves and kind of see if that's really a good fit, but definitely for most of the time you should apply. Anything else? And I also know sometimes questions are going to come as you're like working on some of this stuff and, you know, processing more and looking over the resources. So totally, like that happens. Like I said, walk-ins, appointments, like those are all going to be available to support that as well.
Jordan, I don't know if you talked about this, but do you have just one resume or CV that you have, or is it important to have different ones for different jobs or internships or?
Yep. Great question. So a couple things. One, if you might, I think everyone's going to have a resume and a CV. So you want both those in case what the application's asking for, you might have one or the other. So I think that's always set. But if you're staying within the same industry, I think you're probably going to have very similar, you might not have to have a number of documents. It's more so like a good example, like I graduated and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do like event coordinating at one point or career consulting. And although there'll be some event coordinating in career consulting in the work I do, it would be an entirely different focus on my cover letter and my resume and my resume. And so there's different ways I would articulate it to better connect to that role. So if y'all are in that boat where it might have some switches, there could be some modifications. It doesn't always be a huge thing, but still those little things of like which experience should come first, if it's most related, things like that could really make a big difference. But if it's all within the same context, I think for the most part, you might have the same document. Let's see, we got another one. What are the biggest common mistakes students make when it comes to resumes? This is a good one. Don't use the templates on Canva. There's different templates or Word and stuff, and all good fun. I meant to say this with the formatting. Colors and unique fonts and pictures and stuff, that has a place for creative fields. Like there are creative resumes that are coming up more and more, and we have a separate booklet for that. But that is not most likely going to be your focal area. And there's risk with colors and pictures because applicant tracking software can't even read most of those. And so you're not even being ranked high because it can't read a lot of the stuff that's done. And so there are a lot of templates that have that kind of setting, especially on Canva, and even the stuff in Microsoft Word or Google Docs. Sometimes it'll work, but like when I go to edit your documents, when I'm working with you in a session, the space, they like limit you. And so it's very hard to edit your documents in that when it's stuck in template formats and stuff like that. So definitely encourage avoiding the templates and using like templates from other things and really focusing on the ones that I suggest or that's in the career guide. I'd say another thing with resumes is that it's just not, I've seen a lot of resumes that's just listing the experiences, but no bullets. Like bullets are expected. They need to see what you've achieved and what you've done in that position. And especially for things like ATS that we're going to rank you based on those keywords and things like that. Trying to think if there's any other, and I would say the last one that I might mention is a one-page resume. Like for the most part, you're not expected to have like a 2-page resume until like more so grad students have a lot of experience that would fall into that category and whatnot. Usually you're a one-pager. I've seen some people who have like a 1 and like a fourth of a page of stuff lingering and stuff like that. I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend coming in because if it's just a little hangover from into the other page, there's usually a lot of formatting things that we can do that fit it nicely, not trying to cram it, but fit it nicely within the actual one-pager. Visually, formatting wise, that just has such a more appeal and kind of the expectation a little bit with that. Okay, let me see what other questions we got here. What's the recommended page for a resume? Where can you have 2 to 3 pages? So 1-page resumes are the most common. If you have a lot of relevant experience, a 2-page resume is common too. It's not expected that you would have a ton of those experiences. I'll see people who think they're a 2-pager and it's a lot of like a huge list of volunteer experience from high school and if you're a junior and stuff, like all that stuff starts to wean out more and more as you get more involved in your college journey. They want to see more recent, more high level practices that you've achieved. So 1 page, mostly 2 pages can happen, but I would definitely talk to someone first and have them review it to see if you fit into that category. CVs though, like I said, you're a lot more open with that room. So you might just focus on that for adding more experiences. And then you read the rest of the questions. So yeah, as you get older, as you get more involved, it really does start to just like, you look at your experiences, especially as you get more clarity of what you want to do, you can kind of look at your experience, say, who's the least relevant here? Or I'm gonna put you on my LinkedIn, you're still gonna exist, but like it starts to get to the cutting block and whatnot. But high school for the first 2 years is totally normal. That is okay to have. Some of you are gonna be in different boats depending on how involved you were and things, especially with your first and second year. But first couple of years, high school can still be on there. It's just more so by junior year, we really try to look to see if students can have that off so that they're more competitive for certain roles. Should I include lab hours or research done from class like chemistry lab on a resume? It's a great question. So if you're limited for room, I would say that could be a potential area, or not limited for room. If you don't, you're in the opposite boat, you don't have much for your resume. We'll go to class projects to start articulating that you are gaining these experiences and there's some unique projects maybe you worked on in your classes. I don't focus on that as a strong thing as you get more involved because your degree will kind of have some expectation that you're doing some of that work anyways. And so it's really kind of maybe just to start to get into some involvement first. And then again, it's going to wean out and so on. But to start off, depending on where you're at with your experiences, it can be utilized and we can make that strong, but it's definitely not the focal area. You want to get more involved with other things.
Again, if you guys think of anything else, you can sort of thread questions through us or go to the Fleischman Center and Jordan directly, because you might start working on these things later and additional questions will pop up. But we'll share all of these beautiful resources and everything with you all as soon as we can. And if there's nothing else, let's definitely all thank Jordan for his time, and hopefully you all learned a little something fun today.
Yes. Thank you all. Thanks for having me. Happy to do it. Look forward to some future potential appointments and supporting you with any of those research goals. And if it goes off research, I'm happy to support you then too. So it's all around career development process. Okay. You're welcome, everyone. Thank you for the thank yous.